On January 29th of 2025, the tragic mid-air collision occurred near Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, DCA, resulting in the deaths of all 67 individuals aboard an American Airlines regional jet and U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter. While the investigation is ongoing, early reports indicate severe staffing shortages in the DCA air traffic control tower, a problem that has plagued the Federal Aviation Administration for years, like literally going back to about 1981. Today, we welcome retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, an expert in criminal investigations. Let's talk about the aviation incident here and the systematic failures with the regulatory oversight. Let's examine the developments in this case and dissect the evidence and dig a little bit deeper into this. Given your expertise in the federal investigations, when you look at the case, do you see a systematic failure that could have been prevented? And what is the first thing that stands out to you from an investigative standpoint?
Well, Tony, when you look at this investigatively, it's jaw dropping, really, because I know most of us have seen the footage, and
Hmm.
it makes absolutely no sense that the Black Hawk literally just, it looks to the naked eye, beelines toward that
Yeah.
airline. There's no fluctuation in elevation, there's no fluctuation in heading. It's just a straight on, and you just ask yourself, how in the world could that happen? And then now we know about the release of information that uh, they actually were told, but was it too late for them to then go to their uh, you know uh, instruments and to their ability to actually change direction and change altitude and avoid that? And then of all the questions, Tony, about, when you're flying with instruments, you're really not looking out. I mean, the most famous case is JFK.
Hmm.
How did JFK die? But when you're flying uh, at night, or when it's white all around and all you can see is clouds, you're flying by instruments.
Hmm.
You're not flying visually.
Hmm.
And in fact, that's how pilots fly.
Yeah.
So, um, but still, how this happened, I mean, you see the FBI is out there in full force collecting evidence, and there's a lot for the NTSB to go through, and there's a lot for the FBI to go through.
There is. It's really stunning. I know when it happened, my phone started blowing up with folks from Wichita. I know you are from there. I worked there for about 10 years, so it hits a little closer to home, I think, for some of us, even though I didn't know anybody on those planes. But it's like I've flown that exact route from Wichita to Reagan several times back when I was doing a show on Travel Channel. And I remember, flying in there, and it's like it's a scary place to land. I mean, you think, okay, everybody's, they got this down, they know what they're doing. But if you're just looking around, it's like, God, there's things going everywhere, and you got to get way down. And it's other than like flying into like Newark, that's another one that's not the most fun. It's just, yeah. I mean, I think you have more room for error, more room for something to go wrong. But they've been saying for years, decades, they knew that this was a problem, and it's a airport that continues to be plagued with near misses. It's just, to me, it feels like luck has finally run out on this.
Yes, everything had to line up, right? I mean, when
Yeah.
you look at the pilots in that Black Hawk, Tony, this is another thing that really hit me. They were all very experienced.
Hmm.
I know it was a training exercise, but by that they meant they just weren't operational.
Hmm.
In other words, they were training their night ops,
Hmm.
working on becoming even more uh, adept at flying at night, flying a helicopter at night. And it's mind-boggling to me that this could happen. It also with these experienced pilots is what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of questions now about, their normal height, their elevation, I should say, that they fly at, and were they 100 feet above that? And if so, why were they? There's just so many questions that don't add up. I'm going to be quite frank.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that. But first, I want to talk about the staffing shortages and all the issues that have been at the FAA for decades, literally. They just can't get enough people, and they haven't been able to, literally, since about 81. So we're talking, what, 43 years here of having the same issue and never really finding a solution to it. I know it takes years to go through training. I guess, why on earth have we never fixed this problem when we know it's a glaring problem? We have near miss after near miss, and the number has been going up over the last handful of years pretty significantly of those near misses, and those are the ones that we know about. We're now finding out that there was a near miss the day before this took place, and there was another one the week before, and then you keep looking, and there's a lot. It's just baffling to me that this hasn't been some sort of a priority, or let's re-examine our systems, let's re-examine how we're doing this. And it seems like a lot of excuses have been made as to why you have someone in the air traffic control tower that's doing two people's jobs. I mean, they just finally put into place last year, 2024, the mandatory time of being downtime before getting back into those towers. I guess, why? Why? It is all bureaucratic red tape. This We've been very lucky that we haven't had more of these, I guess.
Tony, I'm really glad you brought up this point. I know I've discussed it briefly before, but for about 5 years, I handled in large part crime aboard aircraft matters at the DFW airport,
Hmm.
which is again 18,000 acres, hundreds of thousands of commuters, hundreds of thousands of employees, and a city, by the way, most
Hmm.
people don't realize
Yeah.
in and of itself. It's huge. And that airport, there were always issues in terms of staffing.
Hmm.
And I can tell you, personally, knowing a air traffic controller, not in the business realm as an FBI agent,
Hmm.
but a tennis player that I
Hmm.
play with.
Yeah.
And she would come with the worst stories just to tennis matches. And she actually would say, does anyone want to be an air traffic controller? We have no one. You don't have to have any specialized degree. You don't need anything other than come to our trainings, get trained up in it, and you can be one.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking, wow, is that really the truth? I think you do have to have extensive training,
Yeah.
I think, from what she told me. I've never done an investigation into an air traffic controller, but I can tell you, as working in that industry for years at DFW, it's a problem staffing, understaffing.
But how long can they keep saying we're understaffed? Yes, I mean, every business usually at sometimes is understaffed, and you figure out how to make that work. It doesn't usually have to take 43 years to fix that problem. And I don't. I'm just baffled by this because we see it so often. We hear near misses every single year, and it's still like, okay, why can't we fix this? Does nobody want to be an air traffic controller? I mean, it's not a great job the way it's set up as of right now. 6 days a week, mandatory overtime. They finally last year said 10 hours between you and the tower and getting back into the tower. Not exactly anything I think anybody really wants to sign up for if you have other options, unless you're just hell bent on being an air traffic controller. What needs to change in this system so we can get the people that we need, get them qualified to do the job professionally, effectively, knowledgeably, and so we don't have to constantly have this many near misses? Or is it, and this obviously was not a near miss, or is it one of those things that is simply inevitable with the sheer amount of air traffic that we have in this country, especially at large airports?
I don't think it's inevitable. I think the biggest problem is understaffing with that piece of it.
Hmm.
Again, would that have resolved this issue? Again, when you're in the tower, the best you can do is communicate. But
Hmm.
Tony, at the end of the day, you have to hope that the pilots are responsible and are doing their job,
Yeah.
looking out for fellow, aircraft in the air. But back to your point, it's got to take incentives. And Trump is a businessman.
Hmm.
That's what he is. And he's running our country now, at least from what I've seen, like he would run one of his business. You're fired.
Mhm.
You're out. You mess up, you're gone. And you would think he would incentivize this strongly. I mean, he's already offered uh, all federal employees this huge 8-month, I believe it is, incentive. We'll pay you 8 months salary.
Mhm.
And I do want to tell everybody, this isn't that new.
Mhm.
I've never seen it this, across all federal jobs, but
Yeah.
in the FBI, they did that about every, I was there for 25 years and I know it happened at least twice where because they wanted to get out the old salaries, the old fat, and incentivize people to leave. So this isn't new.
Yeah.
The
I-
cut salary, but you can't do it right. To me, you can't do this in an industry that is begging and understaffed.
Yeah, I mean, his arguments already have made little to no sense, saying it's like a DCA type thing. Look, I think the FAA is willing to take
Yeah,
anyone and everyone who's willing to apply for the job and is qualified. That's not a place where it's like, let's really go for diversity here. It's like, do you have a pulse? Are you qualified to do this job? I don't care if you're glowing green. You are welcome to be here. That does not seem to be remotely the issue in this specific case. So I was kind of troubled by that right away. It's like, no, you should be looking at the FAA. You should be looking at the understaffing issues. It's not an equal opportunity issue in something like this. Anyway, I digress. I'm not trying to make this political. I'm just saying facts.